Hello, my name is Bennett Tchaikovsky, and welcome to my presentation of Do I Need or Should I Get a Master's Degree in Accounting to satisfy the educational requirements to become a licensed California certified public accountant? So, my disclaimer, the information and opinions in this presentation are those of the author only and not the author's employers or affiliated organizations, including but not limited to the Irvine Valley College and the South Orange County Community College District. The presentation is for educational purposes only and does not constitute any legal or accounting advice whatsoever. This presentation is copyright 2008 to 2021 by Bennett Tchaikovsky. All rights reserved. Any distribution is strictly prohibited. So within the last week, and by the way, I want to say right here, I teach at a community college. I teach at Irvine Valley College. We offer classes at Irvine Valley College that can meet basically can meet the Board of Accountancy educational requirements. So as we look at this slide right here, and I'll post a link to this at the bottom of my YouTube video, but as you look at these right here, right, we offer at Irvine Valley, we offer most of these classes. We offer courses in accounting, auditing, taxation. We also offer things in payroll, QuickBooks. We offer a lot of different classes. And in fact, if you wanted to come to IVC to do 90 of these 150 semester units, you absolutely could. So again, when you hear me giving this presentation, I'm not saying not to get a master's in accounting, but I think though that you'll kind of understand where I'm coming from after I do this video. So why this video? I've had 3 separate conversations with students that are right now pursuing their bachelor's degree in business administration with a concentration in accounting, and they're really wondering if they should obtain the master's in accounting. Because what you're going to find is a lot of different schools really push this master's degree. And why do they push the master's degree? Well, they make more money. Okay, they make 25 grand. That's what they typically charge. UCs can be 52,000, 42 with the in-state scholarship, and possibly another 10 grand in scholarships. So you're looking at these master's degrees can cost a lot of money. So that should always be in the back of your mind when you're going through and looking at this. So a lot of these students are saying, hey, Tchaikovsky, I'm part of a program, and they've really been talking to me about like, oh, should I go through and get my master's in accounting? If you look here under accounting study, completion of a master of accounting, taxation, or laws and taxation is equivalent to 20 semester units of accounting study. So you'll get like a lot of students that are thinking, oh, I have to get a master's, and that's not necessarily true. But let's kind of go through and take a look at this. So a little bit about me. I passed the CPA exam in May of 1991. I did pass all 4 parts on my first sitting, 19 and a half hours over 3 days. I have separate videos on it. It's a lot of fun. I graduated from UCSB after I took the CPA exam. They don't think they let you do that anymore. I worked as an intern in the summer of 1990, and then for 2 years at Coopers and Lybrand, this is now PwC, in audit. I got my CPA license in August of 93. I started law school in the same month. I graduated law school in 1296. I passed the February 97 bar exam, and I became a licensed attorney in June of 97. And I worked basically before teaching, I worked in various accounting jobs, and then basically started really as an assistant controller, became a controller, then an interim CFO, and then CFOs for publicly traded companies. And I currently serve as a board member for a publicly traded company. So I have separate videos on this requirement here. But for most of you, if you are an accounting major at a 4-year university, you can essentially satisfy this, because remember, this is a bachelor's degree, which is 120 semester units, plus another 30 semester units to basically get to meet the educational requirement. You do not need to do a master's, okay, but it can help you. But let's just kind of go through and take a look at this. Do I need a master's degree in accounting? And the answer is, it depends. Where do you want to work? Have you secured work? Where are you in your recruiting process? And I should have said your work recruiting process. So let's kind of take a look at this. If you got your undergraduate degree outside of the United States, meaning that you say you were in Iran, you were possibly in Lebanon, you were in Poland, you were in a foreign country. You got your degree in a foreign country. You come to the United States, you're living here, you have the ability to work here. And you come to the United States and you say, okay, I want to work at a Big Four accounting firm. Big Four refers to KPMG, EY, PwC, and Deloitte. If you want to work at one of those firms and you didn't graduate from the London School of Economics or the Sorbonne or one of those big foreign schools or well-named schools, then what you're going to need to go through and do is probably get a master's degree. Why? Because the Big Four firms generally are not going to hire you from a community college. Okay. Big Four do some recruiting at a community college, but it's not for those people that already have their degrees. Okay, so the Big Four have actually been kind of making some inroads into looking at our lower division, or basically our first, second year students for recruiting purposes, but it's not those that already have their degrees. So do I recommend that you get a master's? Yes, if you want to work at one of the big firms. One of the challenges is that if you have your degree from a foreign country and you come to, say, the community college to take your accounting classes, we generally do not have recruiters coming to hire you. So you have to be extremely proactive. The other thing about getting a master's degree in accounting, I had a former student of mine who ended up going to UCI to get her master's in accounting. She was actually, though, I think she was like, don't want to call it criminal law. It may have been like criminal justice, but she had a lower, basically her undergraduate degree was like in criminology. And so for her, because her undergraduate degree was so unrelated to what she is ending up with accounting, a master's may make sense. But again, if you are an undergraduate student and you're already an accounting major, you may not need to do it. The only other time I would say is that if you didn't start recruiting, okay, until late in the game, meaning that you said, I'm going to go do my studying and my all that other kind of stuff, and finally you're at the last semester at your four-year school, you're about to graduate and you don't have a job, I would consider getting a master's, because most firms will not hire you once you're out of school. So if you started to recruit later on, then that's going to be something that you're going to need to kind of go through and consider. I would maybe consider the master's at that point, but other than that, probably not. So over here, though, is that if you already have an offer at an accounting firm, if you're in an undergraduate degree and you already have an offer at an accounting firm, you do not need to do the master's. It's not going to necessarily, it will give you obviously a deeper knowledge of accounting, but to save money, I would just do the other 30 units at a community college or at the four-year school. Okay, so my general recommendation is that when you're looking at these master's degrees, okay, and again, this is my opinion, I personally would get some work experience first, get your CPA license. Remember, a master's degree doesn't require you to take the CPA exam. That exam is tough. To become a CPA, it's a lot of work. You need to pass the exam, need to have the year of work experience, take the take-home ethics test, and meet the educational requirement, right? So it's a lot of work to become a CPA, but you don't necessarily need to have the master's. In fact, if you were, say, going to even be, so in tax, and I'll talk about that in a moment, for taxation, that's where a master's can make sense, but I think you're going to be better off getting work experience first. Also, something here too, if you're an international student, be really careful, okay? And the reason why I say this is because you want to really make sure that the school that you're going to be applying to has the ability to give you a work visa. Okay, because when you're over here as a student, I believe you're going to be on an F1 visa. Again, don't take my word for it. And so to convert that into like an H1B or another student type visa is very complicated. So you want to make sure that when you're going to that, getting into that master's program, that that master's program is going to help you get that job. Other thing over here too is that most master's programs, the name of the school matters. So if I'm looking at master's programs, right, if I'm looking at the name of the school, if I go to US News and World Report, I'm looking at top schools, right? What do you see in the top 10? It's generally going to be like Cal Berkeley, UCLA, UCI, UC Santa Barbara, UC San Diego, possibly Davis. Those are the kinds of schools that you're going to want to go get your master's from. The name of the program matters. But again, if you already have a job at the accounting firm that you want to work at, then the master's program may not really make sense for you. You can do the other units at a community college. California, if you're a resident, 46 bucks a unit, okay? So again, but for most master's programs, again, the name of the school is going to matter. The other thing I would also tell you too is once you have work experience, most like if you wanted to apply to Harvard to get your MBA, or if you were going to apply to the University of Chicago, they're not going to accept you directly from undergraduate. They're going to want to see that you've had work experience first before they admit you in most all cases. And it's because you're going to be bringing your opinion and perspectives into the classroom. So a lot of times that's really when I kind of go through and make that suggestion. So my biggest push here for you is get the real world experience. Then go back and get your master's if you want to, but go out, get your CPA license. This is by far the most important thing you can do. Get your CPA license, then you can go through and choose a master's. What I would also though too is while you're working, look at others that are in more senior positions, right? So if you look at the controller or the CFO and they got their MBA from Cal Berkeley, you probably want to look into that, right? Because a master's in accounting, if they don't have that, but if they just have their undergraduate degree in business, they're a CPA, and then they went to Cal Berkeley for their MBA, what that's going to kind of tell you is that, well, I don't really need to get a master's in accounting. I'd rather spend my money on getting like that MBA. So again, that's really what you want to be doing when you're starting your professional career. So if you decided over here, like when is a master's degree important? Okay. Taxation. Oh, absolutely critical. Okay. And if you look at tax, if you look at the subspecialties of tax, I'm just going to pause this really quickly because I always love to do this in terms of going to NYU's curriculum. Just give me a moment. So let's go over here. So what exactly is an LLM? That's a master's of law in taxation. So once you get your law degree, right, then after you get your law degree, then what you're going to go through and do is you would go through and get a master's of law in taxation, which is just insane. But it is a huge, it's essentially, it's again, it is a great, I would basically say it's going to be, it's probably the highest echelon you can achieve. But the reason why I'm showing you this is like, look at all these tax classes. Like in an undergraduate setting, I know at Cal State Fullerton, or say at, even at IBC, we just offer a course in individual income tax, a class in corporate tax. But look at this over here. Oh, I got corporate tax 1, corporate tax 2, estate and gift taxation, comparative tax policy, international tax 1, international tax 2, international tax 3. Wow, look at all that international taxation, multi-state income tax, sales and gross receipts taxation, multi-state taxation, income taxation, partnership taxation, private foundations and their alternatives, all of the taxation of Native Americans. When I look at all of these different classes, this is why if you decide to go into tax, this is where the more, and this is for an LLM, this isn't for even for a master's of taxation. This is for a this is, this is a huge deal. So when you're going through and looking at, do I want to get a master's? And in taxation, I would say if you're going to be in tax, the answer is absolutely yes. You can either go the route of getting a master's in tax, or you could possibly do, if you wanted to do, get the JD, which is the Juris Doctorate, that'll take 3 years, and then you can get the LLM. But again, that's if you're deciding to go through and specialize in tax. My personal experience with tax is that when I was an undergraduate, I didn't really understand it all that well. It was kind of like a foreign language. But once I had 2 years of work experience, and when I went to law school and I was taking tax classes, it clicked. And I didn't realize how good my instructor was when I was at UC Santa Barbara. So my suggestion or my advice to you is that for tax, I would, if you're going to do the master's, get the work experience first. Sometimes firms will pay for your master's degree, but you're going to have to pay them back in terms of having to go through and giving them that time dedication, because they're not going to give you the master's for free. When it comes to data analytics, this is by far the most, this is where it's all happening. For data analytics, I could see where a master's degree would make sense. And I think that's a real fair, because again, I don't know enough about it, but to me, it would be something that I would go through and check out. A master's in accounting, the thing that you need to realize is that once you've taken intermediate, advanced, cost, tax, and auditing, which is pretty much what you're going to be doing at the lower division level, you've pretty much climbed the top of the mountain. And if we look at the other, the kind of other classes that are, essentially, and this is just Cal State Fullerton's, basically what they're going through and saying, you've got accounting theory and professional research, seminar in accounting data analytics. That's probably a very good class. Professional accounting communications, I have no idea what that is, and accounting information systems. And then you have these different electives down over here. So my suggestion to you is that what you have already taken in undergraduate, the accounting classes you take are harder than any other business classes. And so my advice to you is, with all of these more advanced accounting classes, once you kind of have these under your belt, it's time for you to get some work experience. So take really good hard instructors when you're in your lower division accounting classes and skip the master's in accounting. But again, if you're in this situation where you came from a different major, like if you're a psychology major, or you're you're an international student, you did your degree outside of the United States at a school that's not recognized by the big accounting firms, and that's what you want, or you were late to the game in recruiting, then I would be going through and taking a look about it. But a couple other things here is that I want to share with all of you is that academics are not the be all end all. It's about the hustle. Okay. And most of the successful CPAs, and I even said this for my other presentation, I pretty much just modified my should I go to law school presentation. But most successful CPAs that I know were not necessarily the best in their class. They were very driven for success, and they did what it takes to basically close business. Those are the kind of individuals that are going to do really, really well in public accounting. And over here too, is that when you're going to an accounting firm, it's really about your book. Like, what book of business are you bringing basically to the table? Academics, it's important that you have a really good knowledge, but at the end of the day, your success with an accounting firm is not necessarily going to be tied to your master's degree. So this is my opinion. I want to thank you for joining me here today. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at 1812cpa@gmail.com. And thank you for liking and subscribing. Have a great day.